That is a correctly installed brand new OEM oil pan with the correct gasket, and that will last for another 30 years. That's done correctly. None of that RTV junk up on there. All right, guys, today we're starting the general maintenance on the 83-300 CD. And if you remember from the inspection video, I noticed that the glow plugs were only glowing for about a second and a half. And that's usually related to a glow plug relay. So we have the replacement relay here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let's go over here and get in the car. It only comes on for about a second and a half. See, it already went off. That should be glowing for about 5 seconds to get plenty of heat into the pre-chambers. So to fix that, we're going to change out our glow plug relay. You can just take off this cover. And we have a connector right here. That just pulls off, and then we have a little 10mm nut right there. And we also have a connector right there. So we're going to go ahead, plug in our replacement relay, and then plug in our connector. And before we mount it in the car, we're going to make sure that's what the problem is. Okay, that's all reconnected. Now let's go see what happens when we turn our key. Okay, so let's watch our glow plug light now. Okay, so before it was turning off. And let's see if it glows long enough now. Yeah, there we go. That problem is solved. Now we can crank the car up. So it was our glow plug relay that was causing that problem. So we have that fixed. So now let's mount that other relay in the car. Okay, to get this old relay out, it's just an 8mm, and there's 2 sheet metal screws here. There we go. There's that old relay. And then we'll take our genuine Mercedes cover and put it back on this one. And there we go. So that was an easy fix. Next thing we want to do, right here, this is the original primer pump. We want to go ahead and take that out and install a Bosch primer pump with a new copper crush washer, because these will leak. If you ever have to use these old original ones, as soon as you unscrew it, they inevitably start leaking. So we're going to go ahead and replace that next. These are kind of a pain in the butt to get off of here. You got to get some vice grips on the side of it. Let's see. There we go. There we go. There's a good grip. There we go. Got it. So once you get it loosed, it then spins out. Now, to put the new one in, you can use a crow's foot. I think I use an 11 or 11/16 or. All right, there we go. So we have this one out of there, and let me show you. So when you crack them open, there we go, and that's how you pump them. There we go. Now it can pump, and there's a little O-ring here. You can see that one's already dry rotted, and they will inevitably start leaking on you, and it's just a mess. So we want to get that out of here. You can barely see it in the video, there's a copper crush washer in here, and you want to get that. There we go. I'm going to get that crush washer out of here, and we're going to replace it with another one. All right, here's our replacement. See, this one works a little different. It just works like that. These are much better. And let's screw off our protective cap. And there we go. There's our crush washer. 11/16 crow's foot. And you can get that down in there. There we go. Here it goes. There we go. And that is now tight. Okay, so we've got our primer pump. Next thing we want to do is, as part of the service, of course, we're changing the oil and filters and everything else. But let's go ahead and take off this main fuel filter, and we're going to replace that pre-fuel filter too. I just don't know when the last time they were done. There we go. And that loosens up the filter. Now, you're going to get diesel everywhere. That's okay. It doesn't hurt anything because diesel is going to spill out of here. It's your fuel filter. All right. See, this says Mercedes-Benz WK716. This is actually, there we go. This is a man filter. Mercedes uses man filters, so we're going to go ahead and get another man filter. All right, here's our replacement filter. You see WK716, and this is, where does it say man on here? Man filter. This is exactly what Mercedes uses. Now, what you want to do, before you put it back on the car, you want to fill it all the way up with diesel, or you're going to have a hard time starting your car. Okay, literally it's filled to the brim, pouring over. That's how much diesel you want to get in there. And like I said, guys, it's going to drip. You're going to get diesel, but it's okay. It doesn't hurt anything. You're going to make a little bit of a mess. That's just how it is on these. There we go. And we'll check for leaks afterwards, make sure we got it on there good. Now, I also like to change, you can see, guys, that's an actual Mercedes brand pre-filter. However, I've said this in other videos, I don't like the Mercedes pre-filters because you cannot see through them. They're not translucent, or I'm sorry, they're not transparent. So you can't see when it's time to change it. Let me show you a better one to use. This is one of the few parts that I don't like to use the stock Mercedes because of the reason you can't see through it. Here you go, guys. This is a Superior replacement pre-filter. Now, this is made by Hanks. It's made in Germany. It is a German company. It is every bit as good, but it's clear. So after running, thousands of miles of dirty diesel, you can actually see through it and see how plugged up the filter is. This is superior over that original Mercedes one, which you can't see through. So I'm going to go ahead and stick the new filter in there and put it in place right there. There we go. We have our new primer pump, our new pre-filter, our new fuel filter. Since we just, there you go, you can see the air bubbles. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's getting the air out of the system here. And that's working really well. All right, next we're going to go ahead and remove these aftermarket URO headlight bezels. Guys, these don't look correct. They might be pretty and brand new, but that's not what the original ones looked like on the cars. Let me show you. Here is the original Bosch I'm going to install on the car. There you go. You see the difference? So these have, they age and they don't look this like bright gray color. That's not what the true original cars look like. They look like this. It's slightly a different color. And you also have the original Bosch logo made in Germany right there. So let's go ahead and pop these bezels off and put the correct ones back on the car. And you see these all the time because these are usually chipped and cracked, and people replace them. And the Euro ones are what's readily available. I can see down here we have these little plastic screws. There's 3 of them per side. They just screw off like that. We'll just set it down there. And there's one up behind here. You can barely see it. It's up underneath the core support here. There we go. There's another one. And there's one right there. Okay, and once you have those plastic screws off, this headlight bezel just slides straight out. There we go. Now that looks correct. And that makes a big difference to the, to the true collectors like, myself and others that know what these are supposed to look like. I'm sure you guys recognize the difference immediately. See the difference? There you go. You see the difference? See the different shading? That's not correct. So let's get this one screwed back in there and then change the other side. Whoops. There we go. I got my fingerprints on it. But there you go. That looks much better. All right, next thing we want to do, guys, is I want to remove the battery and battery tray and inspect under there, make sure there's no rust. And usually the battery trays have surface rust, so I like to refinish them so they'll last, another 30 years. But there's a little surface rust appearing right there, so I want to sand that down and refinish this air cleaner housing. And we're also going to do the general service and maintenance, and that includes changing the air filter. Actually, that's a brand new air filter. Somebody already changed this air filter. Look at that. Man, this car, I noticed the brake fluid was new too, but I guess they fully serviced everything, but we're going to go through and check and make sure. So first thing I want to do with this, I want to sand down those 2 little spots just where a little surface rust appeared, and then I want to respray this, and the correct way to do it is to hit it with semi-gloss paint. That's the original factory finish. All right, I'm actually going to do 2 at once. This is from another car. This is from a 126 I'm working on, and someone refinished this one with flat black. That's not correct. See, this is the correct original one we just took off the CD. It's a semi-gloss black. So we're going to go ahead and sand this one down too, along with this one, and refinish both of them. Here. And I just go all over and scuff it up pretty good. And then I come back with a little bit finer grit. All right, here is some 320. That'll get all this sanding dust off of here. There we go. See, there's a spot where we had a little bit of rust coming through. We've sanded all those down now. And you notice the center section is a cadmium plated metal piece. So we don't want to spray that. And what I found works perfect is the paint can cap. You can set the cap over it when you spray it. All right, let me get a little acetone to get this super dry. There we go. Acetone is an awesome solvent. I use it in the shop all the time. go ahead and take out this little grommet here, and we'll put it back in. Okay, the stuff that I found that makes this a perfect factory finish is the Rust-Oleum acrylic enamel, semi-gloss black. Okay, that's coat one. You don't want to go too heavy on the first coat. So we're going to actually let that dry. And while that's drying, we're going to come over here and get this battery out and check under the battery tray. So we'll take out the battery hold downs. That's what I'm doing right now. And then we're going to remove the battery and the battery tray. Woo. Oh, good. Battery tray is still solid. Okay, guys, I just hit the battery tray in the parts washer, and we can see all that dirt and grime has come off there, and we're left with little areas that are surface rusting through the original paint. So what we want to do is hit it with our 100 grit sander. And get it back down to good metal. See, we go back down to good metal, we sand off the rust. And then we'll show you what it looks like after I sand it down to bare metal, then prime it and repaint it. Okay, so a weak point on the 123 chassis is the area under the battery tray. So I went ahead, removed the battery tray to inspect under here, and it was solid, but I went ahead and treated it right there with a rust preventative paint. That way this will never have issues in the future. So you can see how nice and it's solid down here. There's absolutely no rust here. So I've treated that so it'll be good for, the lifetime of the car. Just wanted to show you guys that. Oh, I also went in and lubricated. You can see the white lithium grease. Let's see. There you go. The white lithium grease on the hood hinge pin. I went ahead and lubricated that so the hood hinge pins are lubricated very well. Also did it over on this side of the car. Yeah, you can see where I sprayed white lithium grease all over the hood hinge pin there. So that ensures that opening and closing of the hood, those hinge pins never seize or develop any rust on them. All right, guys, here we are the next day, and I've put several coats on the, I finished sanding them down and putting several coats of paint on the battery tray and the air cleaner housing, and they look absolutely fantastic. They look brand new. So I'm going to go ahead, put the battery tray back in with the battery, and throw the air cleaner housing back on the air filter. All right, we have our freshly refinished air cleaner housing. Look how good that looks. It came out so nice. And our freshly refinished battery tray. So nice. All the little cadmium bolts in there. How they contrast against the black. I really like that. So I'm going to go ahead and get this battery back in there, and we'll do that next. Mission accomplished. Battery tray is redone. Got the hold down brackets back in there. Good to go. Okay, let's go ahead and start by getting our oil filter out. Unfortunately, Mercedes, in their infinite wisdom, placed all the little vacuum lines right here next to the oil cap, and this heater core hose right here is real close. So you kind of got to get things out of the way, and you don't want to knock anything loose to get this cap off. It can be a pain in the butt. All right. When you're done, you just want to double check that you didn't knock any vacuum lines loose, guys. Guys, again, I like to use man filters. That's what the dealership uses. Hanks are also good. All right, man also sends your crush washer for the pan gasket. I mean for the oil pan drain plug, and they send you a new O-ring for the oil filter cap. So we want to put a new O-ring on here. Really just get the old O-ring off, toss it on the floor, and we're going to put a little oil on this new one before we put it on here. The filter cap nuts, guys, they go onto studs. They only require like 10 foot-pounds of torque. If you crank them down, you'll pull your studs out and your cap will no longer seal. So don't crank these down. See, I just snugged that up. The O-ring does all the work. There you go. It's just snug, guys. You don't need to torque those down. So let's get this up in the air and change the oil, get the oil drained out. And what's cool here on this car, I also noticed the Alda right here. This is it's like an altitude compensator, and it controls the fuel air mixture. When you go up in altitude, it's got a little disc in there that reacts to the pressure, barometric pressure, and it will the disc will flex and let more or less fuel in based on the, I think it's the intake manifold pressure or something like that. But a lot of guys will cut this cap off and back it out and adjust it to give more fuel flow for better acceleration. And I hate when I see that. This one has never been tampered with. That's the original one. We got the original plastic cap. So that's pretty awesome. Okay, what I also noticed on here before we do the oil change, whoever did the last service, the owner was probably complaining that there was some weeping around the oil pan. And you can see they put RTV sealant. That's not correct, you guys. The reason they do, you'll see mechanics use RTV sealant is because they over torque all these little oil pan bolts, and it slightly bends the oil pan, and then it doesn't seal correctly against the gasket. And you'll see them put RTV in there to solve the problem. So I hate that. That's not right. So we're going to remove this oil pan, and we're going to put on an OEM replacement oil pan with the correct gasket and get this RTV crap out of here. All right, let's go ahead, drain this oil and change this oil pan and gasket. Okay, while that oil is still draining, I'm going to go ahead and start removing these oil pan bolts. And I'm going to have to scrape off all that RTV. We will let that drain into the pan. And see all this RTV? I'm going to have to take a razor blade, scrape all that junk off of there, and put it all back the right way. All right, what you're looking at here, this is the oil pickup. And the screen is perfectly clean up in there. See if I can show you guys that. So see, we got a screen up in there. The screen is very clean. And what you're looking at here, this is the oil pump chain. And this is just one of the reasons why these engines last so long. If you noticed, that is a double chain, double roller chain. That's like what you see on the front of like high performance, 350 race engines. And they just use that on the on the oil pump. So pretty awesome. This is the dipstick tube. And right up in there, there's like, there's the main bearing cap. There's a rod bearing cap. There's another rod bearing up in there. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and proceed to scrape off this gasket and get a new one on there. And guys, this is going to take me a little while because this RTV has this old gasket stuck on there. So I'm probably not going to record this whole process, but you guys get the idea. I'll show you guys once I'm finished and it's all cleaned up, and we're ready to put the new gasket on there. There you go. Look at that old RTV. Very smooth. The black stuff you see is just residual, like impressions from where dried oil and stuff has been. There's actually no gasket there. All right, guys, we are about ready to put this new pan and gasket on. That is super clean. That's the way it's supposed to be. Don't ever put RTV on your oil pan gasket. All right, let me get the new pan and gasket. Okay, here's the gasket. See if you can see that. Victor Rines. I like these guys. I also like L-Ring. They make good stuff. And here's why you do not need RTV if you do it correctly. You can see this gasket is several millimeters thick. Let's see. There we go. See how thick the gasket is? So if you torque it to the right spec, it takes up any minor imperfections and it will seal correctly. All right, here is our OEM replacement pan. So we're going to just get a couple of bolts started with the gasket on there to hold it up there, and then I'll go ahead and show you how to torque those down. All right, we're just going to get 2 bolts started to hold it in there while we align everything up. There's one. Now I'm going to show you all the torque spec. You're going to be like, wow, that's it? All right, guys, you can see I've got the pan back up here. All these bolts are snug. And let me show you the amount of torque. This is 72 inch-pounds or 6 foot-pounds or 8 Newton-meters. That is it. That is not much, guys. It's just like barely snug. And that's how you correctly install one of these so it doesn't leak. The gasket does all the rest. And you've got 20 bolts in here. You don't have to worry about it coming off. There's 20 bolts. And the mechanics always make the mistake of over torquing these, and they ruin the oil pans. All right, guys, there we go. That is a correctly installed brand new OEM oil pan with the correct gasket, and that will last for another 30 years. That's done correctly. None of that RTV junk up on there. So let's go ahead and get some fresh oil in here. Always use Shell Rotella 15W40 heavy duty diesel engine oil. Like I said, I know you guys have seen me say that a million times, but for those who hadn't seen the video yet, it's like 100% humidity here in Georgia today. And I mean, there is a little coating of water on everything. It's crazy. It's not raining. It's just like the air is totally saturated. And it takes about 2 of these guys. I usually fill it up with like 1 3/4 and then fire up the car, check the dipstick after it sits for 10 minutes. Fire up the car, let it circulate, then let it sit for like 10 minutes, check the dipstick, and then top it off. All right, we'll go ahead and fire that up and check our level in about 10 minutes. All right, guys, here's one of the final things I want to fix on this car. If you look closely, you can see, there we go. That rear view mirror is cracked. It looks like, whoops, sorry. It looks like something hit it right there and it split across here. There we go. It looks like something hit it right here. Let me turn off the light. There we go. Something hit it right there and it split out from there. So we're just going to remove this mirror. And I've got plenty of extra mirrors here in the shop. And that's a really easy job to take off this mirror and just, or take off the side mirror assembly and then to change out the mirror glass. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And I have OEM original Mercedes mirror glass because you see this occasionally on cars. So first we have to pop off the side cover here and be real careful. There's a clip right behind there. And that pops out. And there we go. This comes off here. And then you have some screws right here. Just undo those screws. There's 3 of them. So there's 3 screws that hold the mirror in there. And this has clearly never been opened before. All right. And we also have the electrical connection here because this is a powered mirror. So we'll just unplug that. Let me zoom back out. When you take out the final one, you just want to hold the mirror as you remove it because you don't want it to fall off of there and hit your car. And there is our mirror assembly. Now the mirror assembly is in beautiful condition. This wasn't hit, nothing wrong with this, but we can see we got a cracked mirror. So let's go ahead and take this over to the bench and replace this mirror. Okay, I have a couple of mirrors. These are my spare mirrors, my parts mirrors from the 123 chassis. And you can see we have a beautiful replacement. So we're going to transfer. Now the reason we can't just attach this mirror to the car is because the coupes are different. See the triangle shape where this the sedan connects? See how the coupe is a different shape? It's like the top of the triangle is cut off here. So what we have to do is take our good mirror out of this one and transfer it over onto this one. Okay, so first we're going to start with our replacement mirror. And right underneath here is a little ball socket. You can stick a pry tool and that just pops right out. And then that just slides right out. It's that simple, you guys. Mercedes designed these to be replaced. There we go. And then it just slides up and out. See, there's 2 little bars back there that go around these notches. And we'll just slip our replacement mirror in there, like so. Then we just pop it back down on there. Voila, a fresh OEM original Mercedes mirror. This car is still 100% factory original. So before I put our cover plate back on there, just tuck that up in there real good. There we go. We want to put our cover back on here. That just slides up into there and snaps back on. Beautiful. There we go. Factory original, mirror replaced, and we're back in business. All right, the next thing we want to do, I'm going to go ahead and top off this windshield wiper washer fluid tank. And then we want to check the power steering. And let's check our power steering fluid and filter. Okay, that fluid actually looks pretty good, but I want to go ahead and change it anyway and put a new filter down in there. All right, we've got all the old fluid out of here, and here's the filter. So this is what a lot of people neglect to change on these cars. You can see that one's pretty dirty. Let me show you our man replacement filter. We're going to stick in a nice clean filter. Now let's get some fresh ATF fluid in there. Dexron Mercon 3. That's what you're supposed to use. There you go. Let's get some of this nice bright red stuff in here. There we go. See how bright red that fluid is? All right, the brake fluid has already been done. So, yeah, that's clearly fresh. Let's check the transmission fluid. I don't know if this needs to be done or not. Oh, yeah, that's brand new. See how red that is? Let's get a little more here. Oh yeah, that's bright red. That's freshly changed. All right, we don't need to change the transmission fluid. So I want to get it up on the lift, and I want to remove the wheels and check the condition of the rotors and the brake pads. And while it's up on the lift, I want to go ahead and flush the radiator coolant and put in some of the fresh Zurex, that gold canister there. That's the correct stuff to put in the Mercedes. So we'll do that now. All right, I'm draining the coolant. You see it's only coming out slow. I need to go undo the cap on the reservoir. So watch what happens when I do that. There we go. So we'll get that coolant out of there, and I'm going to go ahead and inspect the rotors and calipers while that's draining. All right, that's from where I washed it the other day. That rust will come right off when I drive it. It's probably from the wheel cleaner. Let's go ahead, take a look at these pads. Oh yeah, pads are very thick, so the pads have been freshly changed. That's good. And then the rotor surface is good. It's not grooved. There's not a lip on it. So that's good. We don't need to change those. As I said, that rust right there is from the wheel cleaner that I used. That will wipe right off and look like this when I start driving. This part was the part that was under the brake pad when I washed it. So not to worry about that. That'll come right off. All right, so that's good. Don't need to change the rotor or the pads. Let's go ahead and check the back. And I can actually see where someone already had the wheels off and changed the pads because they put a little anti-seize on there to make it easier to come off. So that's good. All right, let's go ahead and check the back rotors and pads. Again, the rust that you see on the rotor is just from where I washed it, and I used the wheel cleaner, and as soon as I take this out on the road and use the brakes once, that'll wipe right off. These rear rotors, there's absolutely no grooving in them. Let's go ahead and check the pads. Yep, these pads have in fact been replaced at some point too. They are as thick as my pinky. So don't need any rotors or pads. And that's good. I see where a previous mechanic put a little anti-seize around the hub, so it makes it real easy for the wheels to come off and you don't get any rust build up there. So that's good. I like that. All right, let's get this back on the ground, get out the torque wrench, torque the lug bolts. All right, while we're under here, I want to go ahead and check the condition of the diff fluid. So you see this little weird mark right here? I think this has been changed because what happens when you change it and you refill it, it starts to drip out, and when the mechanic wipes it away right here, it always wipes away the paint right there. So I can see that this has been serviced, but we just want to check and make sure. We want to check the condition of it. Oh yeah, that's fresh. That is fresh diff fluid. See the color of it? Yeah, we don't need to change that. That's already been done. Diff oil, I say diff fluid. But yeah, see how it always leaks down right there when you go to wipe it away? That's your sign that the diff has been serviced. So we don't need to service that. So the diff and the transmission and the power steering, the brake fluid were already serviced. I went ahead and did the oil change and power steering fluid, but they might have already been serviced too. But you know, I'm just OCD like that. I want to make sure I know everything has been serviced. There you go. See, I just wiped away a little bit more that time. All right, let's get this thing back on the ground. Okay, the last thing we want to do is fill this up with some fresh coolant. Here's the stuff you use. Zurex, made by Valvoline. It's for Mercedes G05. It's like a golden color, and it's the same color as the reservoir. So when you fill it up, you got to look real close because it's hard to see. This is the stuff that protects the aluminum components in the cooling system. Now, to bleed the air out of the cooling system, you just leave the radiator, the reservoir cap off, and you crank the car up. You let it get up to temperature and idle, and it will bleed the air out of the system. All right, let's go ahead and get it up on the lift and check our oil pan for any leaks. All right, let's go look under here. Boom, mission accomplished. It is bone dry. Let's check around the other side here. Very nice. New oil pan looks really good under there. All right, guys, so that is it for the service on this vehicle. That took a few days. Refinished the battery tray, the air cleaner housing, put on a new oil pan and gasket, changed the passenger side rear view mirror glass, did a coolant flush, power steering flush, oil and filter, glow plug relay, and I checked the transmission. That's good. The rear diff, that's good. Man, that's really it. So we're gonna get this thing on the ground, and tomorrow I'm gonna go out and do the test drive video, check, see if I can find anything else that needs to be worked on, and then this is going on the website. So hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys next time.